Welcome back, folks. Match 1 in the books. Energy going forward. Get on my level. Coming down a level. But we've got Nocturns, the winner of the Latin American matchup, and they're going to be heading face-to-face versus Spacestation.
And also bear in mind, get on my level down but not out just yet. They'll just be moving on towards that lower bracket. As you can see in this bracket update, we've actually got energy progressing, get on my level falling down, and now it's all about Spacestation tackling Nocturns Gaming.
Or vice versa. These guys, so get on my level is, we saw that they were able to sort of put up a fight in the early and mid-game versus energy, but unfortunately there was a skill differential, which frankly I think we might see against some of the North American and European teams against energy, so maybe that's besides the point. But Southeast Asia, one of the more younger teams here around as far as the international scene is concerned, whereas when we look at Brazil and Latin America, these guys have been competing for years at this point. And when we watch Nocturns and Black Dragons turn up here, Taco, I mean, these guys consistently improving, and when we see Nocturns here versus Spacestation, this is not a guaranteed win for Spacestation.
Certainly a little bit more familiarity when it comes to Nocturns in terms of where they scale against some of these other teams from North America and Europe. I think that Spacestation is a roster full of members who are not going to be easy by any means to take down, but it's not a situation that Nocturns has never found themselves in before. In fact, this is where they pretty much made their name off of on the international stage, is that they are constantly the main team from LATAM, I believe, whenever it comes to trying to topple North America.
For sure. Their opponents, Spacestation, are going to be pretty tough. All 5 of these guys have looked strong. We were talking earlier about the squad and mentioned perhaps the biggest deal, especially after the LAN, was Aquarius. I mean, he came out of nowhere when he joined the team and was that role player, and then he came out of nowhere again to become sort of a star in his own right.
And Aquarius, my favorite part about him now is just that level of swagger that he carries with him now. I don't think that we saw that before with Aquarius. We knew that he was confident in himself and his ability, but we never actually saw him physically portray it. And now that he's reached that stage of his professional career, we've seen like an all-new level of solo gameplay from him.
And I love the dynamic he brings to the squad as well. You know, Baskin is kind of the giggling little troll behind the scene. JeffHindla is going to be just the purest man on the planet. BaRRaCCuDDa's always got the big smile, and Andy's kind of the cerebral type guy. And actually, we got to talk to the Chuckster himself. It's andinster and BaRRa. Let's see what they have to say before their game.
I'm here with BaRRa and Andy from Spacestation Gaming, about to go into their set up against Nocturns. First thing I just want to ask y'all, first time talking to this tournament, how are y'all feeling? You know, here at the LAN and everything. How's the team doing?
Pretty confident, actually. It's kind of weird, but we had a lot of fun yesterday. Normally we don't have that much fun at LANs.
So what adjustments have you made between the spring split heading into the summer LAN today?
In spring split, we just played a lot focused towards mid and playing double hunter. I mean, this time around, we're just trying to play, I don't know, like a slower game and just like a more balanced style, I guess.
Gonna let someone besides Baskin get some kills, I guess? That's the plan here?
And get some reds, maybe. like,
or farm.
Or even share the red buff with me, like maybe.
All right, well, how are you all preparing for these international teams? Because it can be a little bit tougher. You don't play against them as often. What's it sort of like when y'all are going through that prep?
Honestly, for the prep, I couldn't find barely anything for who we're playing against. I looked, and there's just not much on Google. So pretty much all the international teams, whenever we play them, it's just playing to our strengths. We're not really playing to whatever their weaknesses are. We're just trying to play our own game.
Thank you so much, BaRRa and andinster, for your time. Best of luck against Nocturns, and best of luck throughout the tournament.
Pretty much just as we put it up there. Andy, a little bit quiet and more cerebral, and BaRRaCCuDDa just, answering everybody as you would expect. Just a general nice guy, BaRRa.
We're gonna get an interview with Baskin this weekend, but I'm calling it now because we whether it is taking him hostage and putting him into the interview room or somehow we are going to finally get young Mooney to say something.
I want Baskin and Aquarius to be on the same interview. I think that would certainly be a lot of fun. And the reason we're saying that, if you guys are unfamiliar, Baskin definitely has a very what's his personality like, Taco?
He is a very strong disdain when it comes to public interviews, and he is very open about it. But We got to put him on blast because this is one of the only ways that we can get these guys up and out there because he has so much knowledge, and it's player knowledge at that. As somebody who is not only come from being, he was definitely not the best player in the world for a long time, and then now that he's really come into his own and built his own name, I think that he's got a whole different kind of perception that I'm sure you folks back at home would love to hear more about.
The Korean import, right? Baskin. Jokes aside, hailing from America. I forget where he's from, actually, Taco. Do you know where he's from?
New Jersey.
He's from the same place his support's from, Long Island. Anyway, these guys certainly really strong. As I mentioned, Aquaman, Aquarius over there in solo lane has really kind of stolen my eyesight during a lot of what they've been able to do. We expect Baskin, Andy, these guys to turn up, but I really didn't expect Aquarius to be this level of player.
I'm going to give you a different state every time from here on out, by the way, just so you know.
Just don't say New Jersey.
I was thinking about Virginia.
Oh, Virginia's a lot better than New Jersey.
I'll just say New Jersey every time then, but getting back on track with Aquarius there, I definitely have to agree with you, Tom. It's just that Aquarius, he's definitely one of those players where you can't not talk about the guy nowadays because he is just so out there now. Everyone is aware of his talent level and his prowess as a solo laner, and really the main thing that I'm going to keep an eye out here for is I want to see how Beltway chooses to tackle Aquarius from the spring split through to the summer split. Things have definitely changed, I think, for Aquarius also, and we heard it in the interview. There was a large emphasis placed around this double hunter type of composition from Spacestation. Now they've learned to adjust a little bit more towards trying to really just have a more well-rounded draft and be a little bit more pensive about how they want to actually approach the gameplay.
I mean, that's and it's fun because for me that's a return to what this team does well. I think Cloud9, going back to when they were so dominant, this was the team that was dominant because they just executed the meta extremely well. They weren't creative, and that's okay sometimes. And then everybody kind of caught up, but watching them, change what they were able to do has been very interesting, and the return to just following the meta should be nice.
Another big thing, too, that I'm looking towards for Nocturns is that I think you, in a way, have to approach this set with the unexpected. If you're in Nocturne's position, we've seen time and time again, LATAM, maybe they'll take a game, maybe even two, sometimes the whole set, but we haven't seen a clean set breakaway in a very long time from the LATAM region in terms of battling up on the international stage. And so here, now, is a chance for them to prove that LATAM's still not out. I
mean, Nocturns, like I said, this is one of my favorite Smite teams to watch, in all honesty. I think they have a very unique, I won't even say unique, I think they're just aggressive, but calculated aggressive, and I like that sort of, that pressure. They hit the gas, but they're wary of the speed limit.
It's like they learned how to farm in between those moments of aggression, and that was always one of their big detriments, was that they would fight, but you forget that you also need experience if you want to keep those fights even, and that's where a lot of the international teams seem to really draw back on, but Nocturnes, a little bit more season, can definitely introduce that flavor.
You talk about Nocturnes getting experience in game, but they also certainly have experience out of game. These guys have been to LAN a number of times. This isn't the first time, and it won't be the last time that we spoke to SmiteVOD and Beltway.
All right, I got Nocturns Gaming here. Just got through defeating YSL Serial. Now you're going to be going up against Spacestation Gaming. First, how are y'all feeling about going into that set? Because Spacestation are such a strong team.
We know we feel really good. I mean, we have already played against them, so we know they play so, and I think we prepare better than the last time, so that's good.
What kind of adjustments have you two made between the spring split heading now into the summer LAN?
Well, we have a new mid laner. Nocyx is back because our past mid laner couldn't travel, so we have been practicing a lot with him, and we think that we are better prepared than last LAN, and I think we're gonna have good results.
And you all look strong online. You looked good at Spring LAN as well. What do you think's helped you guys sort of stay consistently near the top in LAN?
I mean, it feels good, As you play, if you're playing good, you feel good, and that's it.
Strong, confident words from Nocturns Gaming. Thank you guys so much for your time, and best of luck against Space Station and throughout the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
Nocturns pulling the old BaRRaCCuDDa there, dyeing his hair, his team colors. They buy in, and that's the biggest thing that I really caught on with Nocturns early on was that a lot of these international teams sometimes, a lot of these international teams used to kind of get in their heads and say like, "There's no way we're beating NA or EU." Nocturns and Black Dragons also have always had the mentality that they can do it. They're all about it. I don't know. Beltway, just one of my favorite players to watch here. I think he's one of the cooler guys in the Smite scene, and it's awesome that we get these international squads here more often.
They've just surpassed that brick wall mentality of we can't beat Europe or North America.
Yeah.
That was certainly one of the more problems or primary issues that a lot of these teams tended to encounter from the international regions. And now Nocturns, we've already mentioned it so many times before, this is a team that is seasoned. This is a team with experience and knowledge now. They have built up the rapport that allows them to feel this confident, and you just have to appreciate that level of player spirit and charisma.
I mean, SmiteVOD himself in the jungle has gotten a lot of positive words from the North American and European players. This guy right here on your screen, he's been spoken of very highly. Look, I think the ego comes in the way, so everybody you speak to is like, well, he's not better than me, but he's better than some of the other junglers.
And to be fair, as a competitive level player, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of ego. I think that in a way it's necessary, because without it, you just don't have that same air of confidence, I think. And we've seen players that have the 100% definite confidence in their ability, and those who are just like 75 to 90% of the way there. It makes a difference to feel yourself sometimes.
And Nocturns are certainly a team that's going to do it. Beltway has that confidence. We see it in the interview. And one thing that I really liked about Nocturns was that the SmiteVOD said in the interview, and it kind of showed how forward-thinking and how they're always thinking about the prize at the end. He was like, look, our old mid laner couldn't travel. So rather than deal with Zaionsix and kind of like switch it up, no, we just left him. We have a new mid laner that can travel, and that's who we're practicing with. It doesn't make sense to be with a mid laner that can't travel because we know we're going to win. That's the way Nocturns approached this split, and, well, they won. So here they are with their new mid laner. We're going to see how everything winds up. First man of the match, Athena.
And having Zaionsix in that mid role is going to be really interesting, because it's not only something that Spacestation might not necessarily prepare for, but BaRRaCCuDDa himself already mentioned there wasn't a whole lot of information. They seem to have encountered the same struggle as Energy there, and arguably in a little bit of a more difficult matchup, and I say that mostly because of the player experience. Nocturns, like we mentioned, they have the background report to match up here, and again, on my level, just a little bit shy, I think, of fully reaching that cusp just yet.
Yeah, like I said, one of the younger international region, right? SEA, previously we had a Chinese region, right? And we've swapped that over to Southeast Asia. China is involved in that. We do have Chinese players in that region, so it's definitely just more, it's fresher. Nocturns and Black Dragons, we've seen Kliz and SmiteVOD been playing here for years on years on years. The Artemis ban leaves Chernobog open. Expect to see these four bans pretty often. Zhang Kui and Chang'e will not be allowed to be played, I don't think, very often.
I highly doubt that we'll be seeing any Zhang Kui anytime soon, and I like the initiative to ban out that Athena also. She's just so problematic with that Defender of Olympus, even the taunt setup initiation. But I love this response from Nocturns already, taking the Thoth and the Sylvanus. Sylvanus is going to introduce some of that side lane pressure, at least from the duo side, so you've already got one lane that you can definitely rely on, I think, to establish a very strong commanding presence.
Well, can't have two Chernobogs, but I see where they were going because it's Cerberus. He's got 3 heads, right? So kind of in that world. We'll fix that for you for a moment. There it is. Spacestation Gaming, go ahead and pick the big doggo for likely Aquarius, but I think HindLa can flex it over there. And I love the Janus pick here for Baskin. Janus is Janus is a character that has 2 different gear shifts, right? He can be aggressive, he can be offensive, or he can just be utility. I think I know which way Baskin wants to play it, so I think we're going to see big damage Janus, but he's going to have to deal with the Ratatoskr out the jungle.
And that was a snap lock insta-pick there from Nocturns. They knew exactly what they wanted. Can't really argue with this combination either. You've got that final judgment matching up with a Through the Cosmos. That little bit of a knock-up factor going to play a heavy part, I believe, in terms of that setup. And also just the chase down potential onto the Janus. It's very tricky sometimes finding an assassin that you could feel comfortable with chasing a Janus with effectively, and Ratatoskr, probably one of your best bets.
So the first pick, Sylvanus, here, I think is going to draw a lot of eyes. I think this is Nocturns kind of doing their homework and seeing that the North American team, well, NA and EU in general have sort of liked Sylvanus a little bit more than they have in the past, and Hindla specifically has come out with the Sylvanus occasionally. So Nocturns, that's where I'm thinking, Taco. Is that your thought process here?
Spacestation have been notorious for these Sylvanus compositions, feeding a little bit into their double healer attributes, but I don't think that was the concept here for Spacestation. In fact, I feel like they were preparing for Nocturns, trying to use their own strategies against them, because whenever we saw an early Sylvanus pick from Spacestation, it was typically complemented by like a Chang'e or an Aphrodite, something healer-oriented later on, even the Guan Yu. And Nocturns, there is still a possibility for a Guan Yu pickup if they so choose.
Sure.
But there's no telling whether the Cerberus is a hard pick for the solo or if it's for the support. That level of ambiguity, again, just being introduced here in Spacestation's draft.
Spacestation in the second half of bans looking towards the Hunter position. No Jingwei and no Dusa. Whereas Nocturns, well, they're looking at that guy. SmiteVOD's got his rat, and he wants to make sure that he can get his Rodent's revenge against andinster. No Mercury and no Cirquet. I need to see more Mercury bans.
I was waiting for the Rama pick up because Marcel's is your go-to Rama player, at least when it comes to the international land stage. This guy has popped off time and time again. I think that was actually the pick that he first really established himself on. Everybody knew that Marcel's has a really dope ROM, and here, paired alongside of the Sylvanus, that's a ton of dual lane pressure. You've already got the cleave autos from Sylvanus that's going to help clear those minions pretty fast, but the astral arrows also just adding more so to it.
Camazotz here for andinster. Not much to say about this pick. I think it's an all-right pick. Not a lot of control in his kit, and not a lot of control overall for Spacestation Gaming as far as hard CEC is concerned. I do like the Odin though, because this was the pick. Spacestation was giving Aquarius some really low pressure characters in the beginning. That's why I called him a facilitator or role player. And then later on, he was playing these hard carries, these Hercules picks. The god that was right in the middle, the game that Aquarius had during the spring land that made everybody go, "Oh, okay, Aquaman," was the Odin. This was the pick that he stomped on the scene with. No pun intended. He'll be facing off against a Chulainn. I love this Odin pick for Aquarius.
This Odin pick was not only perfect for Aquarius, but it's just perfect for the entire, or of shutting down, I should say, Nocturne's composition, because there aren't really any hard escapes from Nocturnes. The only ones who can really get out of that ring, looking at the Ram, looking at the Ratatoskr, and Ram only if you sacrifice your Astral Barrage, and that's not necessarily going to leave you in the greatest of positions. That's not guaranteeing that the rest of Nocturnes is going to be able to bail Marcel's out of there. Ratatoskr could possibly escape also because of the Through the Cosmos, but again, you're sacrificing pretty big team fighting ultimates in order to escape, so Chulainn the only one who can realistically run away.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest deal here is that Nocturnes, yeah, they have to deal with the Odin, but like I said, there's no Ymir freezes. There's really no hard CC. Cerberus has the stun, and then Janus has the portal, I guess? I mean, that's going to be where Nocturnes takes advantage.
And that was actually going to be the next point that I wanted to address, because for as strong as an Odin pick can be, how many times have we seen it before where teams have picked up an Odin and it is great against 4 or 5 gods on the enemy team, but then you don't have the other 4 gods you need on your team to make it work. And for Spacestation, a little bit of risk versus reward going for them, because if they're not able to execute within that cage time period, I'm almost concerned that this is just going to end up being dead weight, because you only have like 45-second windows really to work with, and sure, that's a really short cooldown, but when you look at the entirety of Nox's Nocturnes draft, you have to have the concern what happens during the moments in between the cages.
Exactly, and that's, I think, where Nocturnes is going to be able to nocturne up. I won't say that too often. I'm sorry. Aggro is in my ear. He forced me to say it.
4.
I get to say it 4 times?
4 out of 10.
Oh.
Forehead.
Like I said,
shout out to Jameson.
I blame aggro right there, but you can blame aggro if you get your pick wrong. We ask you guys out there in chat, who's going to take this victory? And as I said before, you know what? Last time, Energy versus the Southeast Asian team won. Southeast Asia is one of the younger teams, and Energy's turning up right now. But I think Spacestation Gaming versus Nocturnes is not that simple. I love the draft from both these squads. I see a world where both teams win game 1.
There is a world where somebody has to lose, though, in that matchup, because there's little victories, and then there's the overall battle. You know, win the battle, lose the war, kind of deal here. I could also potentially see this going to the full best of 3, and that's not to take away from Space Station or a knock towards Space Station by any means, as much as it is just the level of play that we have seen from Nocturnes has consistently gotten better over time, and we've been saying it for so long. It's only a matter of time before they're finally caught up, and I think that this is their chance. They are always on top of their A game whenever they come to the international setting, and I think that with Nocturnes having the right mindset, I don't see this being a very easy one for Space Station to pull away.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, people have noticed the international teams just getting better and better. I mean, PandaCat earlier today, talking about get on my level, said, you know, it feels like teams are catching up pretty quick, and it's fun to watch. And he said that about get on my level. Nocturnes and Black Dragons are a step ahead of them, if you ask me, from my professional opinion. And, you know, to see the players out there noticing the strategies and noticing that these guys are getting bigger, I mean, you don't got to take it from me. Ask Max. PandaCat will tell you that these guys are strong. So, I mean, watching this matchup, I think, is, I said it myself, I think this is going to be one of my more anticipated matchups, because I just like watching Nocturnes and Black Dragons, because I really think that they've gotten consistently better. And I guess it's not that hard to beat Weekend, but I mean, hey, they did it.
just gotta bring that one up for the weak nation, not like this. But he just started to. Odin even also. I mean,
that's my wedding gift to Weekend.
You'll hear from him later, okay?
That's my wedding gift to Weekend. I roasted him on.
Welcome back from your honeymoon. Here you go. By the way, just a friendly reminder.
Oh man. Fun stuff there. Space Station Gaming and Nocturnes. We're going to get into the game in just a little bit. Very quick. Technical difficulty, but we'll speed past it. Baskin right there. All smiles to the mid laner, as it should be. But I think that Ryan brought something up on the pregame show. Very important. Baskin in the spring split was this mount food. You can't touch him. He's out of control. Better than everybody. LeBron James, Babe Ruth. That's not the case no more. I think he's still very good. I think he's still perhaps a step above everybody, but not the 2, 3, 4, 5 steps above he was before.
Sometimes even gods can bleed, and I think that was the case for Baskin towards the end of that summer split LAN, or spring split LAN, excuse me, where we finally saw that he could be, you know, pierced. His armor could be broken.
So the question is, which Baskin do we see? Do we see Mount Olympus God Baskin? Or do we see Mortal Baskin
On an
today?
individual level, I think we will always see Mount Olympus God Baskin. But as a team overall, that's to be determined. This is all up to Space Station to fill in the blanks, because going back to these two team compositions, you've got the Chernobog, Cerberus, Janus, Camazotz, Odin. This is a very heavy pick composition.
Yeah.
People ask all the time, what does it look like whenever the analysts are talking about these AoE control and the spacing control type of compositions versus the specific playstyle of picking? And Chernobog, Janus, already two very effective gods in terms of chase down potential. You've got a heavy disengage and a heavy initiation factor coming forward, and they're two gods that never have to be there at the same time. They don't have to coincide with each other. You can have one or the other and still be okay elsewhere on the map. It all depends on how Space Station choose to spread their pressure early.
That's a really big point right there. The supports are going to play a big part of it. 17% have faith in the Latin Americans. I got to say, I'm disappointed in you, chat. I really am.
Okay, to be fair though,
The BaRRaCCuDDa effect.
that's already like 16% higher than what I was expecting because of the BaRRaCCuDDa effect. That you just can't beat John Salter at his own game.
Yeah, I mean, between BaRRaCCuDDa and this man, JeffHindla, you know, it's funny. You can talk to literally anybody that's interacted with Jeff, and I don't think there's a negative word. Everybody is just positive about this guy, from, you know, fans at home to organization owners. They're just always talking about how JeffHindla's the absolute man. And I got to be honest, he's the absolute man.
You know what it is? It's because he smells like coffee. And you can't really hate the smell of like freshly roasted coffee. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the older you get, the more you appreciate like a nice prime roast of coffee beans.
Yeah, you say the age thing. I think Jeff has just been drinking coffee since he was born.
Just in the bottle.
Yeah, exactly. If you watch his stream, Jeff is just always drinking on coffee. That's certainly one way to keep himself aware. The opposition, Nocturns across the way, certainly going to be a lot of fun to watch. Spacestation Gaming and Nocturns, we're getting into it. Finch and Tolly, make it rain.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Taco. It's going to be LatAm up against North America. Nocturns up against Space Station Gaming. And already right off the bat, Nocturns moving aggressively into the jungle. Just want to get some wards down, it looks like, for Vision. But this is a big set. Nocturns have been consistently improving. Can they hang against Space Station?
It's important for them to come off strong and start swinging as early as possible. We saw the way Get On My Level did it against Energy with the first Bloods, but they couldn't control the objectives. These international teams have potential in terms of boxing, fighting, team fights. There were so many kills in that last set between the both of them, and I think that this is not going to be any different. I would consider that Nocturns Gaming, out of all the international teams, probably have the best upset potential.
They definitely have an opportunity to get it done, and for my money, the key differences have been like the shot calling ability and then just how well the two teams farm. And I think Nocturns Gaming, they're one of the teams that have both those boxes checked. They're able to farm efficiently with these North American, European teams. They make the smart decisions, even in the late game situations as well. Some to tighten up, yes, of course, but they're closer, I think, than a lot of the other competition, so they certainly have a chance to make this one tough for the boys of Space Station. JeffHindla and BaRRa, though, about as seasoned as they come as they move over towards purple.
They had no interest in terms of contesting the lane with a Sylvanus and a Rama. I'll be surprised if they even confirm their own purple.
They are going to be able to get it dropped. Noitulover, though, wants a little bit more. Root lands, but without Zaionsix moving in, they are going to have to fall back. Not going to be able to find much more there, but you're already seeing some of that early clear advantage and that it can pressure the jungle.
So close were they able to steal away that purple. Had that happened, then level 2 on the side of the Sylvanus-Ram combination that already have the out-clear potential, even without any sort of level advantage on their side. But now going to go for their own purple, while BaRRa and Jeff confirm their own red. And this could be the difference. A red buff Chernobog up against no buffs Ram. There could be some more clear potential for the North Americans.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised, especially once a couple levels come in for that Chernobog. His clear is already quite substantial, so this could only accelerate that. But totally, it's a long tournament, isn't it? I mean, it's 5 days. They're playing all the way through till Sunday. This is just the first step for both these teams. Unfortunately, one is going to be dropping down to that lower bracket, but it's going to be a long journey. Stamina, the endurance, the ability to be able to pull more out of the pocket later on, it's what's going to be important. Can Nocturns make it without showing too much here?
Well, Rival in the spring split were able to do it through the lower bracket,
That's right.
as did the console side. And then in the summer console just last week, it was Astral Authority that made it through the lower bracket. So I think these teams are certainly prepared for the long haul.
Maybe there's something to it coming through the lower bracket. You know, you're coming through with, you know, maybe not as much expectations. You get to be warmed up just because of the way those days work out very often. You play one more set, and maybe there's something to all that. But I'm sure both these teams would rather be able to make that easier journey through the upper bracket. But there's so many strong teams. JeffHindla might be experiencing it now as he's already taken a good bit of poke. Should be safe, though, up against the sustain from the Sylvanus.
It's the level 3 versus 2 disadvantage for Space Station that they can't keep up with the lane clear. Despite having red buff onto BaRRaCCuDDa, Zaionsix electing to give the red to Nazex, that's trying to make the plays happen in the mid-Thoth. It's an advantage in the dual lane for Nocturns with this AoE clear. Sylvanus basic attacks, Ram, Astral Arrows, piercing through all 5 targets. There's no interest in terms of 2v2ing for Space Station.
No, not when they've fallen behind early, but Not falling behind is going to be SmiteVOD. Remember, he's on the Ratatoskr, so that means he gets to level up that Acorn. Even without returning back to base, it's a bit of a power spike afforded to this Ratatoskr just by nature of being able to get that item online a little bit sooner than any of his opponents. Not going to be able to find, though, Baskin, who's backed by back-hard.
And he already completed that Acorn that you mentioned. It's SmiteVOD having that 20% movement speed is able to really start ping-ponging between some of these camps, grabbing the right mids, transitioning into the left mids. This is the way that the junglers will start to separate themselves, and the race to level 5, if SmiteVOD hits it right now, which he does, he's going to be able to use that through the Cosmos and start impacting the side lanes.
No, I would not be surprised if we see it happen here now. Ratatoskr, I feel like lately, he's really starting to rise. I feel like even still, there's more respect that could be given to this pick. He's so strong. Even before level 5, he has that stun available to him, but especially level 5, the gank is so fast, it's so difficult to respond to. We'll see if SmiteVOD can make use.
And when you said one god was on the rise and others on the fall, andinster picking the Camazotz. Not a very popular summer pick. It was more of a Season 4-esque style where you're looking for trends or kind of leaving a question mark in the air for teams to decide, is this going jungle, is this going solo lane? So andinster picking this up, trying to really get off the heavy burst damage from the abilities. We could definitely see a lot of physical power in his build as the game transitions.
That's right. We've seen it. We saw it maybe a little bit towards the beginning of Season 5, but not so much here in summer, so we'll see what andinster is going to be able to make happen out of it, as Zaionsix did have those purification beads forced out in the dual lane just now. That might be a good opportunity if he can gank there along with JeffHindla, maybe for some control. Try and get a lead for JeffHindla and BaRRaCCuDDa, because they've fallen behind just a little bit to the pressure from Nocturnes.
But on the opposite side of the map, Beltway had to back, and he doesn't have teleport. He only has the sprint, and this gives a small opportunity for Aquarius now to do this, proxying between Tier 1 and Tier 2. He's going to group up the mini wave, jump with the bird bomb, just to one-shot it, and look at the jungle rotations, Finch.
Yeah, andinster and SmiteVOD are both here. andinster goes in aggressive on the Beltway for damage, but this is more to clear space for Aquarius to return, but they want this blue buff, which is just respawn.
Spacestation Gaming are demanding Nocturnes to make a decision between defending their blue buff or grabbing the wave in the solo lane.
Well, they are going to drop down the cage. SmiteVOD, no mana and very low on HP. Just barely avoid through space in time, but unstable vortex just too good. Baskin finds first blood. Beltway here to defend the blue, but against 3, just not going to happen.
Trying to make it happen. A little bit of a reset. andinster able to confirm the last hit. Here comes Nocturnes, avoiding the stun. Was andinster. Great timing. Even though if he got hit by that evade and punish, not sure if that would have necessarily been a kill, but would have been probably enough poke damage to deter andinster from continuing the farm. There's still the back camps to be done on this side of the map, the blue buff on top of this, and if you're not healthy enough, that gives a small opportunity for Nocturnes to respond.
Well, that's what Janus can do for you, right? Is just rotate over to fights and sort of tip them in your favor, as Baskin is the one who seems magnetized towards those last hits, doesn't he? Always manages to find a way to get those shots, but unstable vortex is what gets it done and turns that fight in Spacestation's favor. Now they're going to be able to put some pressure onto Beltway, who has to try and recover up against this Odin Camazotz.
And that was a great pressure from Spacestation. With the proxy farming between the Tier 1 and Tier 2, it's a small little ripple effect. Aquarius was able to force Beltway to back originally, and then he proxied, and then there was the whole battle over the blue. But Spacestation Gaming are doing the little things correctly, which is what you're able to build off of a lead now with the first blood going to Baskin. He's trying to finish off that Chronos pendant and get that maximum cooldown reduction that we know Januses are so good with.
Yeah, being able to zip around the map for Baskin, and he's already shown what some of that ability to rotate globally can do, even ahead of SmiteVOD on the Ratatoskr, who maybe can't quite keep up, but can certainly get around the map rather well with it through the Cosmos. Instead, it was Spacestation who made the first use, I feel like, of that heightened mobility. Pressure going to be on Nocturnes to try and respond, as Bear and Jeff just getting a little bit of clear, but nothing too crazy happening here.
The problem here is the Nocturnes isn't really using Noitulover aggressively, so JeffHindla is capitalizing on this by positioning himself a little bit forward. andinster, he invaded the blue buff not so long ago, trying to do the same with the left side.
Noitulover, though, is the one that takes a bunch of damage. Ratatoskr too early, gets pulled back in, and JeffHindla finds the kill. The shots from Zaionsix are not enough, so JeffHindla will survive. Sprint expended, but at this point, Spacestation are on the way out.
I'm pretty sure he ate all 3 of those Rom snipes and just barely avoided death there. A great escape out of JeffHindla, making the offensive play and still escaping defensively.
Yeah, and that's with the Warrior Tab early from Zaionsix. as opposed to looking to get the stacking started right away. So, I mean, he had, what, that 40 power helping him out already?
True.
So it still was not enough to bring down that Sylvanus.
Unfortunate that Nocturns can't get on the board quite yet. 2-0 in the favor of Spacestation Gaming, but gold is not that much in favor of the order side. They're slowly building more of an experience lead at this point than the gold. I think a lot of it has to do with the early dual lane pressure between the Sylvanus Ram.
That is kind of equalizing out, even though they've given up a couple of kills here already. But so far, it feels like Space Station have done just a better job moving around the map a little bit more than Nocturnes, whether it was the blue buff invade, whether it was coming over and catching Noitulover with Andy there to support.
Well, the interesting thing is, despite being able to, look for these invades, or at least threatening some invades from andinster, he's a level behind SmiteVOD, still level 8 compared to the Ratatosk's level 9. Gives a slight edge, though, to Aquarius, however, after that blue buff invade that gets the 1 level lead over Beltway, which is more impactful, I think, for the Soul Laners to be able to hit level 12 first, considering that an Odin making a rotation level 12 where Beltway still might be sitting in that Soul Lane, trying to catch up in that level, could turn the tides of a team fight 5-on-4 easily.
I agree with you. I mean, especially since Aquarius is the one that has teleport, he could always upgrade it and even be teleporting to wards, so we got to keep our eye on it. But you mentioned SmiteVOD earlier, and he's the one that I feel like hasn't been able to capitalize on his power spikes. This could be some trouble here in the middle lane for Zaionsix. He does indeed get destroyed. Stygian Torment too much. Andinster is right there in support. SmiteVOD falls. 2 deaths in the middle lane for Space Station.
3 ultimates used because BaRRaCCuDDa used that Living Nightmare to gain some assists, to get a little bit of more gold, receive some farming in the mid lane. Space Station Gaming with another 2 quick picks. Really unfortunate that Zaionsix couldn't do much there. I'm pretty sure he used his evade and punished prior to that engagement.
And that's worth mentioning here. Nocturns Gaming traditionally played with Adair, but now Zaionsix is here as Beltway in a little bit of trouble here in the solo lane. Aquarius is going to jump in, not going to be able to land the damage from the actual jump. But Nocturns Gaming, we talked with them a little bit in the interview. They said that, they couldn't maybe get the travel sorted the way they normally would, so they've been practicing with Zaionsix for a few weeks now, and now they have to come in and play with maybe not their normal mid laner.
Well, if we keep in mind of Season 3 Worlds, Zaionsix made a huge standout performance against Team Allegiant that actually, I believe, found the victory there and was able to do a lot of work for his team that he was also substituting for. So he has a lot of international star power to bring to a team despite not maybe having the full synergy as the previous mid lane.
No, that's absolutely a good point. He's not some rando subbing in for this team by any means. Zaionsix has experience. He's been playing at this kind of level for a while now, but they alluded to, maybe not having quite as much prep time as they would have liked, but certainly still feeling confident. They've been slowly, steadily improving, have Nocturns Gaming, looking really strong in the online splits. They played well at Springland, even though they couldn't quite find the success they wanted. Now's a chance for them to show us how they built on that.
And they're warmed up. They were able to find the 2-0 victory over YSO Serial earlier in the day, and that means that Space Station Gaming are a little bit cold coming into this, but currently with the strategies that they've been able to deploy in the Battleground of the Gods, it seems that all things are still looking fine and dandy for the North Americans, slowly building off of a 1,500 gold lead 11 minutes in. I think that they can start using more of this experience advantage by grouping in the mid lane.
Yeah, look at this grouping. I think they are planning something here from Baskin. This camp is not going to be up in a minute. They might have been looking for a through space in time, but instead they come back towards the mid. I don't think they liked the positioning.
No, definitely not. If Noitulover was a little too far forward without the blink, that's going to be a sitting duck Sylvanus. One of the banes and weaknesses, his kryptonite rather, that a Sylvanus can't handle is the positioning. If you're just even a hair too far forward, you get punished against such a high mobility Janus.
I like that Bane and Kryptonite, keeping it all DC here.
Yeah.
As we talk about maybe some of the shortcomings of the Sylvanus. Andinster getting a good trade with SmiteVOD. That will certainly send him on his way. Beats had to be used through space and time. Almost land. Unstable Vortex just barely nips at those whiskers as well. SmiteVOD just barely going to survive.
Just if it was slightly to the left, that ultimate would have connected and more than likely taken the life out of this Ratatoskr jungle. SmiteVOD still doing a good job despite having 2 deaths. He's on the same pace in terms of experience. Just now hitting level 12 is andinster.
Well, he's done a good job farming, but remember he got the Acorn finished before andinster had boots. He got Crusher done before andinster could back and get Jotuns. He's had a couple power spikes where he hasn't been able to capitalize. He hasn't really done much.
The problem is that Spacestation Gaming are the ones engaging first. That blue buff engage and invade, rather. Nocturns were playing cleanup crew the whole time around. I'm almost curious if they allow the blue buff to be invaded, allow Spacestation Gaming to use a few abilities to see how they could capitalize afterwards. But despite having the level 5 originally, winning the race, Matero couldn't use his global ultimate effectively before andinster made that rotation. Normally, as soon as you're level 5, global any ultimate jungler, you're thinking to yourself immediately, what side lane can I impact? And it probably could have been that duo lane, honestly.
Yeah, there's a chance to come over and try and put some pressure onto BaRRaCCuDDa, who's been free farming on this Chernobog. We saw him rotate in to get some of that experience on the mid lane as well with his ultimate, so anything to slow him down could be great. But as I turn my attention over towards the solo lane, a Cursed Ankh has just come out. I mean, yeah, Sylvanus does heal, but I mean, is it that substantial?
A little bit, and it's more about the upgraded version of it because of how long the healing over time lasts, that you're almost guaranteed to get that damage amplification once you spend that 500 gold. And a lot of players, I believe, they criminally undervalue the upgraded Cursed Ankh. Even with one little lonely Sylvanus, that's good enough to start picking up this relic and start swinging team fights in Spacestation's favor.
Yeah, it's not so much that because it does a bunch of healing, but you're right, it's that healing over time that essentially guarantees you're going to be able to get the benefit from that upgraded Cursed Ankh, because you can't stop once it's been placed out upon you. So I'm sure Spacestation Gaming are going to be able to get some value out of that, because andinster, or rather Aquarius, has already upgraded the teleport. He's definitely looking to play around these relics.
And 14 minutes into the game, this is where team fights are about to happen, using the global ultimate, but a good counter ultimate from Jeff.
Perfectly to avoid getting knocked up and pull SmiteVOD away from the rest of the team. BaRRaCCuDDa rotates in with that living nightmare with Aquarius on the backside to look for the collapse. Through space and time does clip Janus, but doesn't quite set up the rest of the team.
Trying to make the chase happen. Here comes Aquarius, locking in Noitulover. 5th kill of the game for Spacestation.
That cage was perfect, just not a tanky as Noitulover. Level 9, so far behind the rest of Spacestation Gaming and taking too much damage. That opens up the door now for the Gold Fury. SmiteVOD still around. Over the wall is Janus. Has Final Judgment for the steal, but it just wasn't enough. Gold Fury goes to Spacestation.
Even with Janus's ultimate, Zaionsix couldn't make the rain happen from the sky. Spacestation Gaming walking away like bandits with a Gold Fury 15 minutes in the game.
Now Beltway didn't rotate, so he will grab that tier 1 tower, but SmiteVOD so low. A good juke to avoid the jump coming out though from Aquarius, so he will just barely survive.
Oh, that's cute.
But very close.
The Ratatoskr is like, missed me again.
He did indeed miss.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Aquarius not finding the kill, but I'm sure that he's very happy that his team was able to at least secure the Gold Fury, and he doesn't really mind losing his tier 1 tower at this point in the game where he's still ahead in the gold. He's being able to make those impactful rotations before the the Phantoms are coming along. Beltway had to go into this because Noitulover, being level 10, it's going to take him a while to get his 2nd relic available.
Could be a lot of pressure on Beltway to be in the right place at the right time. But the right place at the right time is what I would say for Janus. I mean, he very nearly was able to strip away that Gold Fury. And if you're Spacestation, I mean, there's got to be like a moment of caution on that one. It was a little bit of damage, really, that separated down from getting stolen. So just maybe a little cleaner on those in the future. But other than that, they've been looking excellent so far here in this game.
And even if Spacestation Gaming did get that Gold Fury stolen, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. They still would have had a little bit of a gold lead, but it would have just allowed the late game to go into, oh, hold that thought though, tower dive.
This is the aggression that comes out from through space and time. Noitulover, first casualty, a little bit of trouble for SmiteVOD as well, but it's Zaionsix who takes damage. He rolls away, but up into the air looking for the snipes. Also looking for someone to come down to BaRRaCCuDDa, but he just needed to get out of combat for a moment.
Oh man, it was a waiting game between this Ram Chernobog combination. BaRRa respected the Astral Barrage damage. I'm not sure if Zaionsix had the range appropriate there or if he just missed, but BaRRaCCuDDa walking away with a sliver of health, and these plays from Baskin are starting to show effectiveness. This level 17 Janus, very high, the highest level in the game actually, which is rare to do over a soul laner, but Baskin always finds a way, having full cooldown reduction with the soul gem to top it off at the 40% mark. Puts him at a very scary state.
Yeah, Baskin, we heard them alluding to it a little bit there in the interview, but often the farm seems to go his way. Red buff around his waist as it often is, and That's netted him a very nice advantage over Nocturns here in the middle lane, who of course hasn't looked off or anything like that. It's just tough when you're up against someone of Baskin's caliber. The through space and timings have been perfect to facilitate for the rest of the team.
It's just the mobility factor. If Spacestation Gaming group up as 3 in the mid lane before Noitulover is able to make the presence, then Spacestation will look for those plays every time, and that's why there's a 2-level advantage for JeffHindla, playing the Cerberus that's been able to not only set up his team, but find some of these last hits.
Trouble for andinster in the middle lane. Noitulover gets the first kill for Nocturns Gaming, as Andy just goes a little bit too far and gets controlled. That time, the group up favored Nocturns, and they're going to slow down this jungler for a moment.
A little too aggressive from a Camazotz that's building glass cannon. You don't have defenses or the health to survive that engagement. You're more than likely trying to tell JeffHindla to be the primary engagement to allow andinster on this Camazotz to play cleanup crew.
Nocturns are kind of pushing forward a little bit in the mid lane for a moment, but with Baskin there and JeffHindla waiting in the wings, they're not going to be able to step up aggressive. So even though Nocturns have gotten their first kill, yes, there really isn't anything they can capitalize on with this 5v4 advantage. Gold Fury's down. They are down in gold as well, about 4,000. I don't know that they felt very comfortable with it. They are going to take this fight here in the jungle and force JeffHindla to jump away, but not much more there.
They can't do anything without Zaionsix. He's looking for that solo farm, a level behind BaRRaCCuDDa, trying to get some penetration because he opted to finish that Poison Star as quickly as possible. Same thing can be said about BaRRaCCuDDa. Really worried about some of these jungler penetration dives in the backline.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for Zaionsix to be able to keep up with Barra's farm as Aquarius has to jump away over here in solo. A couple of the kills have happened here in duo. Like 2 ganks have gone their way, and BaRRaCCuDDa was able to rotate to one of the others. So it's just been some assist credit that's just going the way here of BaRRa that Zaionsix can't keep up with, even though he's still very, very close at this point in the game. But Spacestation Gaming haven't completely run away with this game as we approach the 20-minute mark.
Well, they got the first Gold Fury at 15 minutes, respawning in 15 seconds. This could be where the turning point really starts accelerating. If Spacestation Gaming confirm this one, I have not much hope for Nocturns in the future.
Well, it looks like BaRRaCCuDDa already posturing around that Gold Fury here, Anatoly. He definitely wants to be nearby once it comes up. Oracles will be right there as well, which JeffHindla, along with andinster, are going to grab. Nocturns Gaming recognizing, though, they're moving over to try and grab some positioning as well, but not going to actually pull it just yet, Spacestation. They're not ready to pull this. They're going to let JeffHindla back, maybe finish off whatever item he's working on, the Mid-Guardian Man.
Without the Sentry Ward that was just taken out by Nocturns Gaming on the top left mid-Harpy, you don't have that trifecta vision around where you really want to control, because there's a lot of range from Nocturns between Nocturns and Zaionsix, which they demonstrated by just narrowly trying to steal away that Gold Fury. They weren't successful. They were just maybe a quarter second away from being able to snatch that one away.
Just the smallest of margins, I feel like, was really different between that Gold Fury. And really, I mean, even between this game, as I was saying, it hasn't been run away with just yet, but we're still early on in this composition. I mean, they're going to be playing around a mid-game Chernobog and a mid-game Janus here in just a moment, so things are certainly going to be scary if you're Nocturns, but their composition's kind of reaching its own prime with the Rom, with the Thoth, so they'll certainly have a chance.
Ooh, Zaionsix had to use the beads just to disengage, but here comes Aquarius with a beautiful upgraded teleport.
Now that was just too much for Zaionsix, and a great job forcing out the beads, and now Spacestation will certainly feel comfortable grabbing the Gold Fury, and no contest coming out from Nocturns. They want Pyromancer instead, so it will be a trade on these objectives.
A 1-for-1, but Gold Fury has a bigger weight in that value. 21.5 minutes in. The ultimate out of Baskin. The chase might be on here, Finch.
This was perfect. They're not even going to let them grab the Pyro. This could be going the way of Spacestation Gaming. SmiteVOD and Beltway want to try and make it in, but it's already been claimed by SSG. Beltway controls it up in the air, brought back into the damage, but he still has not fallen just yet.
Oh, Baskin will seal the fate of Beltway, making a chase 5-on-3. Nocturnes on the retreat.
Gonna drop that cursed Ankh. That's gonna be a big one to check up on. His Noitulover can't stand the heat, so get out of the kitchen. 3-man knockup comes in from SmiteVOD, but it's too little, too late, and now Nocturns in a whole heap of trouble. Baskin sends him back to the grave in a casket.
One quick pick onto Zaionsix around his own purple buff leads to Gold Fury, leads to Pyromancer, to 3 more additional kills, and now even the Fire Giants.
And why not go for this one? It's only SmiteVOD and Zaionsix that's up. It's only Zaionsix who's nearby. He does have the ultimate. He is going to go up in the air and contest those shots from afar, but they're just going to halt. Spacestation Gaming successfully confirm the Fire Giant and send SmiteVOD on his way.
Oh, the ultimate a little bit misangled out of Baskin. He assumed that SmiteVOD would have went towards the tier 2, but not able to find that one. But walking away with the Fire Giant and the red buff, this is how Spacestation Gaming start really building the leads. They see one little opportunity. BaRRaCCuDDa forces the beads, and at the same time, even before the beads were used, Aquarius was already thinking like 2 miles ahead with the teleport preemptively.
Yeah, Aquarius has really kind of been the difference maker, I feel like, here in this mid-game. The teleport was great. That Odin cage around the Pyromancer after they grabbed it is really what sort of helped them lock in Beltway, and he had a tough time finding any kind of escape path as well. There's not been any comfort in the backline for Nozyx and Zaionsix to look for their damage. Spacestation Gaming creating a lot of space in these fights.
Looking really solid, these North Americans. To start off the day, it's all about momentum and keeping yourselves in the upper bracket. But history has shown that the lower bracket teams always seem to find a way to come back. But against these international teams, whether it's Energy versus Get On My Level, whether it's Spacestation against Nocturns, a lot of the fans at home and a lot of the analysts as well are just more used to these non-international teams, and they've been just historically a little bit better in the edge, being able to get a better meta in terms of picks and bans, being able to capitalize on those little opportunities and not have any fear. The Nocturns Gaming, the way they've been playing this whole entire game, was reactive. They haven't been able to make the plays aggressively. They've just been kind of waiting to see what Spacestation Gaming do and try to defend, and it hasn't worked thus far. There needs to be more proactiveness in game number 2.
Yeah, they have not had a chance to sort of get that gas on it all, and whether it's down to the shot calling as a team or not, could be some trouble here around the tier 2 tower. They at least want to try and fight on this one, but they can't move into any kind of position. This one's going to come crumbling down, and now JeffHindla has the Stygian Torment into through space in time. Noitulover, see you later, jumping in aggressively as Aquarius forces out Aegis from Zaionsix, who goes up into the air. Final Judgment doesn't do enough damage, but Aquarius is certainly low. Evade and punish from Nozyx gets the return.
Those 2 crits from BaRRaCCuDDa, just 2 shot. Nozyx completely in a 4-on-2 situation. Spacestation Gaming are not calling for the end quite yet. They're going to take their time and play this very safely, looking for the left side Phoenix.
Well, they've got a minion wave here to try and help them take down this Phoenix. SmiteVOD not even going to defend. Beltway only watching on. Phoenix in mid. Phoenix in left falls down. What was only really a 3,000 to 4,000 gold lead 5 minutes ago has now ballooned up out of control. That Gold Fury Pyromancer Fire Giant really spiraled things out of control for Nocturns. Now Spacestation Gaming firmly in control.
It's not just about the opportunistic plays and invades of the early game blue buff. It's how you can capitalize in the end game and the opportunistic positioning from JeffHindla. Normally, supports don't flank like that. It's normally either the assassin junglers or the solo laners from behind, because you're relying on your guardian support to kind of peel for you in the backline. But when you have Stygian Torment like that and a blink, JeffHindla made the proper play to set up a beautiful, I believe, double hit coming from through space and time. The cage from Aquarius locked in several members, and there was just no hope for Nocturns after the flank.
Yeah, JeffHindla turned that from a free tier 2 tower for Spacestation into a Phoenix. And then the other Phoenix on the left-hand side just with that play, in all honesty. I mean, a great start there from, or a great initiation to that fight from JeffHindla. 2-0-10, a part of all but 1 kill along with his duo lane partner, BaRRaCCuDDa. These two continue to be excellent as now they come grab the tier 2 tower, the last remaining tower for Nocturns Gaming.
And that was a great transition from Spacestation, considering that they were ever so slightly behind in the duo lane. And that's mostly due to the composition. I think that Nocturns could have potentially played more aggressive in the duo lane. They have this Ram-Sylvanus combination. They did try to invade the purple buff, was about half a second too late. But I'm curious if they tried to look for the red buff invade after failing the purple buff invade. Had they stolen that one away from BaRRaCCuDDa, would they be able to extend their advantage any further?
Right-hand Finks appears to be the call. Fire Giant buff no longer available totally, as they do indeed want to try and force this one down. Aquarius going to be the frontliner. Again, has that Cursed Onk fully upgraded at this point to try and add a little bit of insult to injury. But after that test, looks like Spacestation are going to fall back. They're not ready to force this one down just yet.
They don't have that many fire minions next to the throne room from Nocturns, as they're able to really defend where you need to, right outside those Phoenix ranges. And I'm really curious about that ward that's inside Nocturns Gaming Titan room. That could be used later on from a hot teleport. Aquarius was showing us that he's capable of it around the purple buff. could definitely do it in the end game. But Spacestation Gaming, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, wanting to play it safe by grabbing this enhanced Fire Giant.
Yeah, I really like this from Spacestation Gaming, right? They step into the Phoenix. If Nocturnes step out of position or they find a nice engage they like, they can take it. If not, it's in that weird minute after you lose the buffer. There's not really much to do anyway. They come back perfectly timed to grab Pyromancer, maybe a second or two, then FG spawns. So Spacestation making perfect, efficient use of their time.
An interesting point to make is the crit builds coming from BaRRaCCuDDa, simply because Beltway hasn't had time to go any sort of reflect, going from a Guardian Mail, Mystical Mail, and then having to go for the Phantom to deal with these Odin cages out of Aquarius. I like this build from BaRRaCCuDDa, realizing that he'll be fine and dandy hitting any target out of Nocturnes.
It's really funny. Baskin and BaRRaCCuDDa, their opponents, Nocturns and Zaionsix, have essentially been going down the same build path as them like all game long. It's just you get the preview with Spacestation because they're just so far ahead.
Yeah.
So they've kind of been moving along the same path. But yeah, the BaRRaCCuDDa certainly in a good spot with this crit as opposed to Zaionsix, who is going to be having to worry a little bit more about some like of the mid Guardian Mails that might be coming out from Aquarius and JeffHindla.
A full Deathbringer ahead and about half of a Wind Demon is looking solid for Spacestation Gaming's Hunter, where Zaionsix still needs to find some more time to be able to complete his 6-item slots, but there might not be much time left for Nocturns Gaming. Spacestation Gaming are splitting the map, grabbing the middle Phoenix, keeping Nozix and Smitero preoccupied while they dive the right side.
Aquarius is the one who's gone in aggressive. Right Phoenix has already fallen up in the air with Smitero, but can't find a way in. The target will be Aquarius, but he's very tanky, drops the shield, stays alive, and is able to retreat through space and time, clips Beltway, but not much damage from that. They grab mid Phoenix, right Phoenix, and left will fall to minions.
BaRRaCCuDDa forced to use the Aegis to deal with that final judgment, and Phantom being used from Beltway. Aquarius' ultimate cooldown reduction is going to be able to heavily out cooldown that Phantom. And an interesting build as well from Aquarius. Look at this Hasten Katana wanting to get into that backline. Now, the fact that you don't have Blink, you don't have Sprint, you need to have some sort of movement speed, but that's obnoxious amount of movement speed. Normally, you would go for a hybrid movement speed item where you go defense and movement speed, which Winged Blade comes to mind, but Spacestation Gaming with such a commanding 22,000 gold lead at 30 minutes, you're able to make decisions like Aquarius has.
At this point, you can afford a luxury item or two if you're on Spacestation. No Phoenix is standing between themselves and the Titan room, patiently awaiting on getting a few minions to move in to try and split the focus of Nocturnes, who are set up for the defense. But with this aggressive positioning, Spacestation are ready to move in. The pull comes out to JeffHindla from Noitulover. He jumps right back. BaRRaCCuDDa looking for pot shots, but it's fire minions coming through the middle lane. Final Judgment does hit JeffHindla, and Spacestation are finally ready to start moving in.
It's no big deal. Without that final judgment, the backline is super safe from Spacestation Gaming. Andinster looking for a little bit of chip poke. Noitulover a little bit off the mark, but all the sustain from the Fire Giant is keeping Spacestation Gaming still relevant and looking to close out this very first game in the best-of-3 sets.
Yeah, very patient from Spacestation. Now jumping in aggressively is Spacestation. Smitero responds by going over to the tree. Nice knockup does bring JeffHindla a little bit low, but Titan at half health. BaRRaCCuDDa falls very early on, but Andinster gets Beltway, and Spacestation Gaming get the Titan. That's going to do it for Nocturnes, at least in game one. It's a best-of-3, but Spacestation already looking strong.
I like how methodical Spacestation Gaming were to close out that first game, not wanting to overstep any boundaries despite having just one of the most dominant leads I've seen in competitive Smite. Now, whenever a team has a 10,000 goal lead, that's already like sealing the deal almost. Yeah. You wanting to still play safe, but when you have a 20,000 goal lead and you're still waiting for fire minions, you can definitely tell Spacestation Gaming are already thinking about the cleanest opportunity. And when you have plays like this against a team that you're expecting to beat, you know that you're going to continuously make that kind of same play against teams that are even more difficult to challenge.
And remember how Spacestation got this lead totally, because if you're Nocturnes, you did this right? Remember, they go for the Gold Fury, do Spacestation, so Nocturnes like, we can't fight in, let's just grab Pyromancer, at least get something. But that's what Through Space and Time does, man. It just kind of cuts all that off.
I think the mobility from Baskin's Janus, who was sealing the fate of the aggressive plays out of Nocturns. They couldn't really look for it, and as a result, there was a lot of counter rotations from Baskin and his crew, and I think that that's what ultimately shut down Nocturns. I think that they just got in their own heads after the blue buff invade.
It really made things a little bit rough for them, but who is y'all's MVP at home based on what you saw there in Game 1? Baskin certainly, but I wouldn't mind a vote for Aquarius.
Yeah.
Some of his early rotations, the teleport in particular, his cages really kind of helped him out in their fights.
I think JeffHindla did a solid job as well in the duo lane. He set up a lot of plays there. He was able to avoid death with that defensive Stygian Torment against the Ratatoskrs through the Cosmo, and then that flank play from the tier 2 tower set up the first 2 Phoenixes. My vote, JeffHindla.
Yeah, that's really what kind of broke it open. If you think of it as the Gold Fairy to Pyro match that first started it, that Blink Stygian Torment really sealed the deal. But we can talk about that game here, I think, for the rest of the day. We'll get it back over to the desk and let them break it down.
Great stuff, Finch. Great stuff, Toli. Tom Battinger here with Mr. Taco, and we're getting ready to break down game number 1 of match number 2, Spacestation Gaming versus Nocturns. Listen, I talked them up, and I don't know, I didn't see it. Nocturnes just not as strong as we thought.
A bit of a doozy there for Nocturnes for sure, and I can't necessarily fault them too heavily, though. This one felt like one of those compositions that just kind of got away from you. Nocturnes knew from the get-go that their main concept here was to play around the team environment. They wanted to all be grouped up before they started jumping into the mix of things, and unfortunately, that just never really managed to come to light because they just got shut down so early on. Spacestation did a great job playing super aggressive with their pink composition, and once they kept finding those successful individual pick-off moments, it's hard to make that team fight happen when you're constantly put into the 4v5, the 3v5s, and whenever you're running on the back heel with a late game composition, you can kind of expect that one to just never really go in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, also, you did the complicated, I'm going to do the simple. Also Thoth. Like, Baskin came out, what was it, 5-0-5 before that final push. Really strong stuff out of him. And, Hinduman came in here and said, "Stop giving him Thoth," and then left. Like, he was just angry about seeing all the North American teams and the European teams get Thoth, and I think he's onto something there, honestly. This is a character that has kind of fallen in popularity, but he's right back here, and I think that he's going to be a big part of this land.
Thoth, Janus, these two gods are always going to be those edge case situations where competitive level play, you cannot afford to give those picks up, but as far as your ranked and casual matches are concerned, probably not going to go the same way as when you see Yaman or Baskin on the big screen back at home, but taking that in mind, I think that Nocturnes, we're probably going to see some of those adjustments happen in game number 2. This is a team that they are pretty adept, at least, at understanding, hey, we clearly can't let this bird go through.
Sure, absolutely. Most valuable player coming through here. You guys go ahead and nail it. This was a fantastic performance from JeffHindla. Rare to see the support pick this one up, but I think that Toli really got it correct, I think, when he said that the ability for him to just set everything up here with the Stygian Torment, this is a very aggressive support.
It was all planned from the start, by the way. That 1 HP in a dream. Gets the kill also in the process. So just the perfect support play that you would be looking for. And I like that Jeff kept being that initiating factor because it was just a constant swarming against Nocturnes. Like we talked about before this game even kicked off, it's not that Nocturnes couldn't fight into the Odin ring by any means. It was just making sure that they stayed even. You just have to keep up through that first 20-25 minutes, and Space Station, with the way that they smothered Nocturnes, it was just not really possible or realistic after a certain period because they just had full map control, they had full buff control. Whatever farm Nocturnes was acquiring, it was being split between 3 to 5 members, and that's never going to lead you down any nice roads. So it was just a very tough matchup, I think, for Nocturnes to try and recover.
Andinster, 4 kills and a death. Certainly looked strong here in game number 1. Playing out and being exciting. Andy here has been kind of slowly returning to, I think, the dominant player that he was. One of my biggest concerns and one of my biggest criticisms of Andinster in recent memory was the lack of consistency. He's just been, some games he's 12-0, and other games he's 0-12. And luckily for Space Station Gaming, it looks like we're seeing the good side of Andy.
It is a little bit early on, however, so can't really tell how things are going to keep up throughout this week or the weekend. But for right now, it is important to get off at least on the proper starting foot. That's definitely something that andinster has managed to do here with Space Station in game number 1. And as far as game 2 is concerned, I mean, you almost don't want to see any changes if anything, because it's just not really needed. That was such a blowout match from Space Station that they're probably just going to be looking for a repeat.
Yeah, you know, you say that, but I still want to see more hard crowd control. You know what I mean? I think that the pick composition, you and I were talking during the game, pick composition worked out. It worked out really well, but you know, I'm going to stick to my guns. This isn't a bad team, and I think you can't do that twice.
With the possibility though of Space Station having to face Energy next if they win this secondary game against Nocturns, there's the concern of not wanting to play your entire hand.
Oh, for sure.
Super early on. I mean, this is the first set, so I kind of am still looking more towards Space Station being professional and being serious about the match, but tossing in a little bit of fun also. I mean, how often do you get to see Hasten Katana on an Odin?
Yeah, about that one. Aqua, we're going to talk about that a little later. But when it comes down to it, I think that, you know, when we watch SmiteVOD and Beltway and the rest of the guys on Nocturns go head-to-head, I think really what it is if Space Station to show up with the exact same draft, I think, you know, I think that will be a tougher game for them to handle. We'll have to see how everything works out. But, you know...